Hi, hello. How's it going? This is not an October Halloween costume. This is an actual hoodie that I ordered months ago that I didn't receive until it was too hot to wear it. So now I am taking advantage. And there are like wings on the back. I kind of love it. His name is Patrick. This is obviously not sponsored, but Natural Habitat Shorts. There's a bat named Patrick, and they came out with some merch. And when I saw the Patrick hoodie, of course, I was like, yes. So anyway, today's the 21st. It's Holly's birthday. Happy birthday, Holly. I hope you had an amazing day. It is also the new moon in Libra, like right before Scorpio season. And if I'm going off of how I feel in this moment, and I'll be right back. I do want to grab my iPad real quick to see if this is like exact or if the moon is already in Scorpio. Or I guess if the sun is in Scorpio for that matter. Because I know it was happening really, 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 really late. Oh, I had to stretch. Also, welcome to an Oracle Juice Live. I'm about to pour me up a shot. Actually, I have some orange juice. I mean, I'm still gonna put some alcohol in it. Now, last time I called myself attempting some kind of mixology. It did not turn out how I necessarily anticipated or expected. I mean, that was just water, so and it just made like the whole thing spicy. But anyway, yeah, I am intrigued to see what Scorpio season has to offer. Now, I was gonna do a thing weeks ago. I feel like at this point when I did um, the like perception versus reality type thing, and after I like did that, there were some things that I noticed like immediately after. But then also, as it's sort of just been like swirling around, oh my, oh my, this is like partially frozen. As it's been swirling around in my mind, there are additionally, like, there are things that I've realized and things that I've kind of mused over. I don't know. It's. I think even when I was doing it, I was like, "Oh, this is really fun," and not entirely anticipated. Like, you should try this if you have cards and want to, maybe, or not. Who knows? Today we are playing Temperance. Okay, that's enough. Yeah. Not gonna lie, the tail end of Libra season kind of caught me by surprise. I would say maybe the third decade. Okay, this is actually not bad. There's enough orange juice to like cut the chili and the mango chili, and it does add a nice sort of fruity flair, I guess, which is yeah. I may it is a little chilly, so I may actually keep this up. Anyway, like my impression immediately before I went live. Oh, which is why I pulled this. Was it's almost like Libra season cracked a seed, especially like the tail end of Libra season. At least as far as I realize. But it may have been. I'm trying to think of when Libra season started. So it would have been late September. Excuse me. Where's Time Nomad? Here it is. Let's see. As of this very moment, the moon is in Scorpio, 5 degrees. The sun is in Libra, 28 degrees. 28 degrees and 59 minutes. So it's over. Well, when was that? Is that when it like really hit me? Anyway, give me one more. I think it's in the summary. 7:26 a.m. 7:26 a.m. That was hours ago. Is that right? Is the moon that slow? Because it would be roughly like 12, 10 to 12, maybe. If like 2.5 days. Anyway, it's fine. I don't have to get into the depth of it. Excuse me. This said it happened over 12 hours ago. Let me go back to the chart. Oh. Anyway, okay, it's fine. So I've had a few ideas. I feel like the time hasn't necessarily passed, but when I did the perception versus reality of a thing, I'm going to mess with this for a second because I don't like completely love this angle. Um, and I don't completely love that one either. And it's like basically the same, so I probably shouldn't have even touched it. I should have just left it alone. Like it's basically the same. I was gonna do that around the underworld and the uncreated because there was an energy, especially it was before. It may have been at the end of Virgo season where there was an energy that was like um with like the whole abyss versus the underworld type thing. And the underworld or the realm of the dead is one thing, but then like, there's also the realm of the uncreated, the realm of the things that have not yet seen the light of our sun, right? Maybe they've gotten close before, but never fully breached, right? And so I was going to use a tarot deck and then the world unknown, alchemy, and archetypes. For some reason, I think as I was on a walk yesterday, because I didn't walk today, and I'm pretty sure I was on a walk when I had the thought. I was going to pull in between the Five of Pentacles and the Hermit in the Astro Matrix Tarot because it's like the Five of Pentacles are like people in need, but they aren't necessarily getting what they need where they are. And then the Hermit in that deck in particular, it was this energy of like it was looking for the people, it was looking for people in need. And so, and it was recently in one of the later videos or in one of the more recent videos that I use the Astro Matrix Tarot in, where it sort of came out that way of like people in the Five of Pentacles think they're supposed to be where they are because that's what they heard, but the Hermit is actually the one that provides the help. Excuse me, right? And then there could be an energy on the other side of the Five of Pentacles that's like it intentionally plays upon and preys upon the vulnerable in some way. which kind of makes sense because the hermit's journey does involve the Hierophant. The Ryokurukian hermit's journey involves the Hierophant. At first, the hermit has the light of the Hierophant until it delves deep enough to discover its own light. And then I had a thought to do something else, but I don't remember what that something else is or was. I mean, at this point, I feel like I might as well just take the hood off. There's like a hair bump in here. Let's see. I'll take it out. I don't know if that'll flatten it or not. I have been roaming around, roaming around town with my Patrick hoodie. I only noticed that it had wings on the back today. Like I said, after I got it, it was too warm to wear it, and so I haven't really worn it except twice recently and like once when I first got back. And it was still like kind of warm, so I didn't wear it. I just like basically wore it out once, took a picture, and then that was it. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, there we go. There we go. One of the ears is a little limp. Oh, there you go. Guess I can't have a ponytail. Oh, look. The Five of Pentacles. It was the final card last time. Why do I feel like my ear is ringing now? Is that the sonar? I think my bat sonar is starting to activate. I feel like there was something else. Oh, yeah. The world at the cut. This world card is interesting. It feels like something has been put in balance. If this yin yang image isn't flat, it feels like a wheel. And when it's in balance, like it spins and everything is quote unquote right in the world. So, because it feels like it's spinning now, and that's what makes this earth goddess happy, it implies it was either stuck at one point or spinning in the wrong direction. Like maybe every now and then it switches direction, and maybe like the direction had been stuck. Cool. So, Nine of Cups and the Four of Swords. Nine of Cups and the Four of Swords is like a rest assured energy. Nine of Wands and the Nine of Cups. Always look at the condition of the Nine of Wands. He's bandaged, but his bandages aren't bloody. His bandages, it feels like he's in pretty healthy condition. His bandages almost read like braces. Like, a back brace if you're going to do heavy lifting and you have back issues or you just want to protect your back. And then there's the Nine of Cups. Are the Nine of Cups protected? Is she sitting behind this Nine of Cups? That's an energy. Like if the Nine of Cups is a wishing well or a fountain, a place where people can go to get their wishes and dreams heard and potentially answered, then it's like the Nine of Wands would stand guard. And that almost brings to mind the thing that I'm forgetting? Because there were a few things I had in mind to like do, right? And I'm likely not going to do all of them or any of them, depending on how this goes. Um, is that okay? I thought it was my journey buddy for a second. I was like, "Ooh, journey buddy, you're supposed to be asleep." Um, yeah, interesting. This is the only deck I pulled out, which doesn't mean I can't grab another one. We had the full moon Aries first, right? So the sun was in Libra, the moon was in Aries. I feel like I did something wrong then. I don't remember. I feel like so well, I guess my well, has that been my full moon Aries experience? Maybe. The full moon Aries may explain why I've been like struggling with my nature so much lately. And it's also interesting because you could say, in some ways, that my nature has made provisions for me, or provisions have been made for me because of my nature. So, not just the like stipulations or points of tension, but also points of like recognition. Um, and that's been interesting. And I kind of, in a way, I would almost wonder why now, because a lot of what I know of my nature, I've known for a while, right? I will say, though, there were some parts of the truth of my nature that were shrouded because of circumstances in life, right? So it's like there were these shadows that sort of manifested in my life, and they weren't completely illusory. They held a kernel of truth. But it's like where I was when I came upon those truths. It's like I took them to mean things that they didn't necessarily mean, right? It's like the truth that I had found molded itself into a certain shape dictated by the environment and the situation I was in at like the time of discovery, right? And so when things changed, as I evolved and grew older and matured, and then as I faced those shadows, I was able to see. I mean, like facing the shadows was one thing, discovering the kernels of truths were another. And then finally, the expression or the expression of that truth without the shadow was like a different thing, and it's almost like the expression of the truth without the shadow influence that really sort of maybe made things really come into a type of clarity. And I almost mean clarity like there's a clarity has a meaning that basically means clarity, but it's specific to something. Let's see if I can find it. Excuse me. I'm gonna have to go to the restroom. Okay, can I get a definition? I should have put definition. The quality of being coherent and intelligible. The quality of transparency or purity. Okay, I need more. The quality of being clear, such as the quality of being easily understood, the state of having a full, detailed, and orderly mental grasp of something. The quality of being easily seen or heard, the quality of easily being seen through, a lack of marks, spots, or blemishes. Maybe it's that one. I think it's that one. Most diamonds have small imperfections called inclusions. These are usually microscopic. The fewer inclusions, the higher the clarity. I think it was that one that was in my mind in particular. A lack of marks, spots, or blemishes. I feel like something along those lines came out recently. It wasn't immaculate. I feel like there was another word that I looked up the definition for fairly recently, and it was similar. I don't know if this will work, but we'll see. Also, after I did that reading with the Pokemon cards, there were some things that like stood out to me. Um, I'm gonna have to go to the restroom. It's fine. I'm already like 23 minutes in almost, and like still haven't pulled a card. I feel like I am. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna run to the restroom. I'll be right back. All right, so I did end up grabbing the Wadano Tarot and no, the Wadano Alchemy and Archetypes. Mm. And now I'm like, am I going to use them though? I also have the SKT on the table because I had to get to those or go through those before I got to the Wadano. I also have the Fable Makers Animated Tarot. And I feel like I haven't gotten a deck dungeon challenge in a minute. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get a deck dungeon challenge. And then I'm going to pull from the Astromatrix Tarot. And after that, I'll pull a Wild Unknown Archetype and Alchemy card. In the, no, I was going to say in the Trickster format, but I don't think so. And basically, the I'm going to pull before and after the Uncreated and Mortifactio. Because I think Mortifactio is the closest alchemy to the underworld. And the Uncreated is the closest thing. Well, the Uncreated is the Uncreated, so it stands for itself. Now, I could pull before and after the Void, but it's almost like these are two. It's almost like if we had the sight to see, we would be able to semi easily. 8 of Coins. The Pentacles ain't moving. Hello? Did my card break? Okay. These Pentacles, I guess the Pentacles don't move in the 8 of Pentacles. 9 of Pentacles, 4 of Pentacles, 8 of Pentacles. And then the 3 of Pentacles. Okay. And then the Ace of Pentacles. Why are all of the Pentacles here? And then the High Priestess. It's a mystery. It's a secret. High Priestess. Wouldn't you like to know? It feels like if we had sight to see, we would be able to easily differentiate the different aspects of the void. But since we generally or thematically, since we can't see, since our void sense, or if our void sense is still developing, there we go. You see how long I had to think to try to find a way to say it. If our void sense is still developing, it's like we can't differentiate one thing in the dark from another. But if we could, if we had like owl eyes, then we would be able to clearly see the difference. It's almost like the difference between a midnight blue, a black, a deep, like purple, maybe. Like there are certain colors, especially in certain lighting conditions, that can border on black. But if they were like well lit, then we would be able to tell that, like, okay, these shades are different. Right. Cool. The Hierophant. 8 of Coins in the Hierophant. 8 of Coins in the Hierophant gives an interesting energy. It's like the Hierophant is a guide, right? As a guide, if the Hierophant is a guide, the Hierophant is a guide, and as a guide, the Hierophant is not absolute, right? And it's like as a guide or as a mentor, the Hierophant's job is to direct people. But then at some point, it's like we create on our own, or we evolve beyond the Hierophant. We evolve beyond the guidance that the Hierophant like gave us. We mature, right? And it's like there's something with that Eight of Pentacles that like gets stuck in that Hierophantic shuffle. The Five of Wands just flipped over, which is interesting because the Five of Wands came out, I think, in a self read. Because I was like, it's the Five of Wands, not the Five of Swords. I remember. I remember. I think we've had the Three of Chalices and the Three of Swords. So we saw Nine of Cups, Nine of Wands. Now we have Three Swords and Three Cups. I'm pretty sure the Five of Wands has come out in a challenge before. Excuse me, the Nine of Wands. Oof. Bottom of the deck is the Knight of Swords on this side, and the Eight of Coins still on this side. This is the Temperance of Wands. Temperance of Wands is an interesting combination. Temperance of Wands is an almost, could be, because it's the Five and the Nine of Wands, Temperance of Wands is a too big for one's britches situation. Like, let's say that someone emerges victorious at the Five of Wands, and like a Five of Wands victory is different than a Six of Wands victory. Right. It's almost like the stakes are different. The Six of Wands is like someone returning from war. The Five of Wands is like roughhousing. Right. It's like an exhibition game. And it's like, even if the players give it their all, because you know it's not a season game and because the stakes are inherently different, there's something in like the real game that the not pressure, the environment that the stakes like bring out of you, right? It's like being able to give 125%, where you can almost only give 110% in an exhibition match because it's like there's no score that's really being kept. And so, having emerged victorious in this Five of Wands energy, it's almost like someone takes on more than is for them, and then they kind of get like beat up at the Nine of Wands. It doesn't have to be that way, but the Temperance of Wands is a humbling energy. And that's not necessarily other people humbling someone. There's Eight of Coins. All right. Eight of Coins now have to cut with the Knight of Swords. I mixed the two halves together. I feel like I'm starting to get warm. I'm starting to get very warm. Justice at the bottom of the deck. This could go either way. With Justice at the bottom of the deck, especially, it could go either way. Someone could like emerge victorious, maybe like barely. And then it's like, oh, the Five of Wands was like nice practice for the actual whatever, right? But it's like barely. But there's, in that case, there's also an energy of like, you can only prepare for certain things so much. There are certain things for which practice or forewarning is only so effective. When the thing actually happens, when the situation is actually there, like that's the point of training. The point of training is to instill a knowing within the body, so that if the mind or the heart or the spirit sort of like waver, the body like automatically kicks in into like what was instilled in it. It's like physical practices that self activate when they need to. And so when a certain number of words, you could say that the point of the expedition game isn't to win. The point is to build that um, body memory. There's a word for it. Okay. Or you could say that there's a connection made between the body and the soul. So that if the mind or the heart are to waver, since the body is connected to the soul, the body will do whatever. Right. Page of Swords is our challenge. Bottom of the deck is the Nine of Wands. Again, so this gives a certain flavor too that is reminiscent of was it the Hierophant and the Eight of Pentacles? Again, in the World card, there was something that said that it's like when we realize that yin yang isn't, in this instance especially, the history of yin yang, of the symbol specifically, is lengthy. And who am I? But it's like when we realize that it's not a static symbol, but that it's something that's actually in motion, but the entire time it's in motion, the forces are balanced, right? Again, that temperance sort of equilibrium. So this Page of Wands it's a moment of inspiration or creative insight. You could say it's like a stroke of divine genius or divine intervention, or you could say someone like channels something or gets a download. You could say someone's intuition speaks up. I guess that covers a multitude of expressions. Someone's intuition speaks up and they hear it and then they follow through. And it's like listening to the intuition is almost like a key, or can determine which Nine of Wands outcome it'll be. Either the victorious Nine of Wands or the other Nine of Wands, the too big for their britches. Because again, it's like the energy of the expedition game, or the point. The point of the expedition game is not to win. The point of training is not to be victorious. The point of training is to learn. And sometimes when we win an expedition, it's almost like we grow lax, right? So it's like being really good at whatever in a small town, and then you get to a larger city or you meet other talented people and it puts certain things into perspective, right? Like for me, and for a lot of people that went to Purdue, and I'm sure Purdue isn't unique. Like when you're used to being the smartest person in your grade, your school, your hometown, whatever, and then you go to a place with like other smart people, and you go to a place that it's like where the culture is what it is. And it's like they know who they're dealing with, and their task is to still help those people like learn and grow and evolve. Like you're going to face challenges you may not have faced before when things were built around a different standard, right? So just like if you're a creative and you go to like a technical school, excuse me, it's not that the creative programs won't have any creative rigor, but it's almost like there's an understanding that maybe like some of the technical people will need to take some of these classes to fulfill like degree requirements. And so the depth and level of the artistry of it all may be more shallow because that's like the standard. But as you progress within that field, of course, it'll get more unique. As you progress within anything, it becomes more whatever. Right. So this Page of Swords. is that moment is a moment where the intuition speaks and we have the choice to listen. And it's almost like, again, it's almost like in all of the expedition matches, like this is the setup. Like if we're really good at pattern recognition, maybe we recognize patterns, right? And so maybe um, within a certain metaphoric frame, it's like the people that you play in expedition, you also play in like this season. And I'm not a sports person, girl. I'm trying my best to work through this metaphor, okay? But it's like you assume that they're gonna play because again, in the season, the stakes are different. And so if our in our pattern recognition, we assume that, oh, like this person is gonna make this play, and then they don't, that can like freeze us up, and then we could either shut down or we could get creative ourselves, right? Either way, that's what this Page of Swords is. It's an opportunity, it's a moment to get creative. I'm gonna pull this up. There we go. I could have been pulling this up as I was talking, but obviously. Oh, look, I'm already here. Fortunately, I don't have to go too far. Chalices, coins, swords. The acolyte of swords sits studying a heavy tome, attempting to memorize a poem. They are chatty and excited to see visitors. They offer to unlock the door if someone could teach them a word they do not know. If they are impressed with the word, they offer the eyes of the eagle as a gift before unlocking the door. Eyes of the eagle. EYESOF, the eagle, 5E. I'm pretty sure it's probably just something that gives you like far sight, but it doesn't hurt to read it. Eyes of the eagle. It's a wondrous item. It's an uncommon wondrous item that requires attunement. These crystal lenses fit over the eyes. While wearing them, you have advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight. In conditions of clear visibility, you can make out details of even extremely distant creatures and objects as small as 2 feet across. This is so interesting, especially because of the whole um, void senses, right? And being able to see the difference between those dark shades of like what separates the abyss or the space of the uncreated from the space of like the underworld or the things that have come and gone and come and gone and come and gone however many times. In my mind, low hanging fruit, and let's not get stuck here too long because it's late and yeah, in my mind, and maybe it's because I used to do this. So again, low hanging fruit. It's like you can take known prefixes, suffixes, and other sort of stems, I guess, to create a new word. Or it's almost like a turn of phrase, maybe. So, for example, like what senior year of high school, I think I was like, why is nevertheless a word, but evermore isn't? And it was kind of hard to explain or to attempt to explain the conditionality and a lot of the like context that would go behind at least where I think ever the more could be used instead of like nevertheless, right? Because it's like nevertheless to me is almost what's the word? antagonistic, I guess. Like a however or a but, right? Like nevertheless almost stands in opposition to something, but ever the more is like the flip, like it affirms something, right? Like you could say, nevertheless, we must be vigilant, right? Like this is happening, but we still must be vigilant. Or you could say, like, we must be ever the more vigilant, which sort of like plays up more on it's almost like in that example, nevertheless would try to abate a fear, but ever the more stokes a courage. Ultimately, the end result is the same, if not very similar. But sometimes those things matter, right? I feel like that's not a strange concept. Also, in this moment, I feel if there isn't, it's fine. We don't have to go there. That's not the point. But I do love the eyes of the eagle, especially because now I'm about to pull. Am I getting these now or am I going to get these after? Let me get these after. Now I'm going to pull the uncreated for the realm of the uncreated and mortifactio for the realm of the dead, for the realm of the things that have come and gone. What comes to mind, and I saw the word orange recently. What comes to mind is the whole, maybe that's a thing, because right, we were also talking about, and I'm pretty sure that's before I read it, like if there's a technical institution that also offers creative courses, um, it's almost like at one, it's like the creative stump for a technical person is to find a word that rhymes with orange. But it's almost like if you were in the creative world again within the space of this metaphor, take it as it resonates. If it resonates, and if it don't take it. It's like if you were immersed in the creative world. It's almost this feeling of like there are so much more interesting or whatever things that we could like devote our time, energy, effort, and attention to rather than like a word that rhymes with orange. But if you need a word that rhymes with orange, it like invents a word, right? Because it's almost like in the poem that the ace of the page of swords, the acolyte of swords is trying to memorize. Maybe it's one that it's creating and it gets stumped, right? And it's a new word. And the Page of Swords is the Page of Swords, although you could view the Page of Swords as naive because it's the youngest within that family. The Page of Swords is extremely learned. So, and it's the challenge, right? And so that may be the thing. Imagine the Page of Swords is like Shakespeare. You know how many words? I don't know. I've heard, I'll say it like this, I've heard that there were a lot of words that Shakespeare used in his works that weren't necessarily words before he used them. And that was my argument with like, there was one teacher, one of my English teachers in my senior year, the second semester of my senior year. I had her for rhetoric, maybe. And she just like went along with it. And I loved it because whenever I made up words for like in other classes or whatever, I would get marks like, oh, that's not a word. And I'm like, I'm using prefixes, suffixes, a stem that you know. Are you telling me you can't infer the meaning of this? But she was like, actually was like, oh my gosh, like not like praising whatever, but like accepting of it. You know what I mean? Like new things are created every day. Even scientifically, there are new like theories that are put out there. And then when they're proven, that's how you get like concepts. Anyway. Oh, girl. A face down card immediately, but I'm not looking for face down cards. I'll honor it though. We'll keep you as a mystery. Maybe that'll be the thing bestowed by the eagle eyes. I'll pull from the bottom so it's quicker. The Drowned King, Summer, and Lightning are the bottom three cards. Summer and Lightning. Interesting. The Uncreated and Mortifactio are the cards that I'm looking for. I'm pretty sure the Uncreated is an alchemy, because in my memory it's a lot more recent than the archetypes. If we look at the Void, if we were curious, it's between Spring and the Sun. There's something behind the Sun. Behind the Sun is Chaos. Massa Confusa. There's the Chaos behind the Sun. But we're not looking for that. I mean, we're now entering the other side. Oops. We have entered. I guess Libra starts it, right? We have entered the other side of the zodiac wheel. So now, if there's a full moon Taurus, maybe you can reflect back on like the new moon Taurus during Taurus season, or the full moon Scorpio, right? Here we go. So we have Glass, which I love because, again, Eyes of the Eagle. The Uncreated. And then the Androgen. I love this whole combination. The Androgen makes so much sense for the clarity of Glass, and maybe even for the quote unquote rarity of the Uncreated, or of birthing something, creating something new, a new word. Oh, goodness. Sorry. My mind just said something. What do you call that? Downloaded? Let me stop. I don't know, girl. I was just prompted in a way. And I'm like, oh gosh. Well, interesting. I'm looking for Mortifactio. Here we go. So we have Separation. Neptune is the card before Separation, if you're curious. You may not be. Separation, Mortifactio, and Sulfur. After Sulfur, there's only two cards. It's Mercury and the New Pearl. So top of the deck. I looked from the bottom, which is the more like subconscious unseen element, the more subtle element. These were actually pretty close to the top. Mortifactio was the fourth card from the top. And if you go a little bit longer, you'll reach the Uncreated. Now, I could take that to mean, in order for us to reach the realm, unless we take a purely subtle approach, which is a whole cluster in and of itself, we will hit, unless we do that, we'll hit Mortifactio, the underworld, before we hit the abyss, or the realm of the uncreated. Okay. So the card before, I'm going to keep the card after. I don't want to do this. The card before, I'll keep and pull the tarot. The card after, I'm going to pull the corresponding card in the Wild Unknown Alchemy. Or archetype, sorry. So we have the 30th card with glass, and then the 70th card with separation, which is a difference of 40. 40 is death. And we're entering Scorpio season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60. These are kind of like matte and stick a little bit. So I got to be careful I'm not pulling multiple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 70. Interesting. More wands. Bottom of the deck was the Nine of Swords. Oh, look, and the grave markers. Again, unless we take a bottom up approach, we have to make it through the underworld to make it to the realm of the uncreated. And I don't know if this is necessarily, I don't know where that connective space is or would be, but it's almost like those 9 swords block one sort of entry way or point. On the other side, on the side of glass, we have the 8 of Cups, which is Saturn in Pisces. Saturn is in Pisces now, retrograde. Mars in Aries is the 2 of Wands. What I love about Saturn in Pisces is I feel like if there was one planet that you could connect to discernment, it would be Saturn. And I almost feel like if you try to get discernment from any other planet, there it would almost have a tint on that lens, right? Venus or Jupiter, any of the benefic planets, it's going to taint our discernment because you could say we would favor more of what we want to hear or what we believe will make us happy or whatever, right? Mars, it's easy to see how that could taint discernment because that could prioritize action. And in prioritizing action, maybe we feel like we have more control because we're doing something, even if our discernment tells us to be still and wait. Mercury. I feel like Mercury could go either way, especially if it's quick. It feels like Mercury may just like stall out. Um, Pluto. I feel like Pluto would be a good one, but it's almost like Pluto is so heavy that it may be difficult to not almost like buckle under the weight of it or to basically have a reverse effect from one of the benefits where we kind of sort of like look at it a little worse or a little darker than it is. Uranus, I feel like Uranus would do. But I don't know. To me, it seems like Saturn would be the planet that's capable of like impartial, unbiased, just the thing as it is, like straight up. No connotation either way, besides how we interpret the words. Cool. So, within this context and framework, the uncreated approach to the new word, with the Eight of Cups, it feels like that approach is to revive a word. Like the new word is one that's forgotten, which is a marvel in and of itself. It feels like the Two of Wands, on the other hand, may be the one that creates the new word. So that shows you where my brain is. Does it? Maybe. I'm looking for number 29, which corresponds to sulfur, and number 72, which corresponds to the androgen, which may be the last. No. Sorry, that's 62, not 72. LXII, 62. 62 and 29. I guess I don't have to shuffle since I'm just looking for the card, right? 29 and 62. It's interesting because the poet is in between the maiden and the bardo, by the way. And the Page of Swords did mention. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, comes to mind. Right? And so if we want to create something that's never been created, that's why the Page of Swords would need a new word for this poem. In a way, a creative in the function of hope instills, a creative in the function of hope uses their medium of choice to inspire feelings of either things that haven't been experienced, or like that haven't been experienced ever before, or that haven't been experienced in a long time. And there is something about art's ability to help us transcend circumstance. And then it isn't almost, there are artists whose work is impactful enough that it sees people through journeys, or like initiates people into journeys or changes, right? It's like these films or this music like came to me in a time where whatever, and like that was like literally the thing that gave me the momentum or the inspiration to like really change things around, and it worked out. Because of the bardo with this maiden, it feels like this thing is stuck in the birth canal. Again, I guess I think of the world where the wheel is now starting to spin as it should. Somebody had a 5-year-old baby in an anime. Somebody had a 500-year-old baby because for 500 years she just like refused to give birth, and it didn't grow inside of her. It just stayed as a fetus. It stayed as the infant. It stayed in the state that it was in when she was ready to give birth, as developed as a newborn baby. It stayed as a newborn, an unborn baby, an about to be newborn baby, A fully cooked baby. I don't know. Until like 500 years later, she gave birth. She let it go. I'm looking for numbers. It would be easier to just use the book, but I guess I'm not doing that today. I need LXI and XXIX. XLI. Close, but not quite. Excuse me. I know it's not the warrior. I'm gonna have to use the restroom again. I done broke the seal. I feel like that's been happening a lot today. I'm not a big fan of having to use the restroom, personally. I don't know if anyone is necessarily, but I don't know. Whenever I watch a TV show and it's just like floating brains and they're like, we've evolved past the need to use the restroom, I'm like, oh, when? I'm looking from the bottom again, and these are pretty close to the top, which I kind of love. XXIX is the self. $29. No, I need 62. Sorry. I think I said 61. LXII. XLII is the empty room. But I'm looking for LXII. Oops. The lover just like took a swan dive. It wanted to beat out Kairos, which is interesting because the lover, almost said the liver, the lover is an energy that the ring indulges in Kairos, or Kairos is seen between lovers. Oh, and then look, the underworld immediately after the ring. So maybe that's just our path. Because we are physical incarnate, we have to go through the underworld first to get to the uncreated. And maybe the spiritual subtle side is vice versa, especially on the side of the divine. What I also love about this ring is glass. The glass is inside of a gold band, right? And then you have the ring. This is sight beyond sight. I have to go to the restroom again. All of the cards are here. So on the side of the underworld, we have the Two of Wands and separation, followed by the self and sulfur. Sulfur, as far as I know, is the tria prima. Well, sulfur corresponds to the tria prima of the soul. Right, it's fire. And it's interesting. This is interesting. Because it's almost like the sense of self that we see, acknowledge, recognize. It's almost like we recognize the self as belonging to the soul. But you could say that the soul is only a manifestation of the self, just as is the mind and the body. That the soul does not itself contain the self in its entirety. You could also say that the self is the sum total. of all of those parts and pieces. And so the sum total cannot entirely live within one. But this self is almost like the capital I, which again, I think that came up kind of recently, or some iteration and version of it. It's almost like the divine is beyond the soul. Like it's not just the soul type energy. And I feel like to us, from our viewpoint, vantage point, as I've heard it, like the soul is like this, the ultimate, final, and first expression of the self. But if something is an expression of something else, then that thing is not what it expresses, right? If music is an artist's expression, the artist isn't the music. If giving flowers is an expression of love in whatever way, platonic, romantic, whatever, like love is not flowers. So if the soul is an expression of the self, then the soul in its entirety or itself is not the self. And there's something with this separation in Two of Wands that only gets half of the picture. But I would imagine that this is the reason why we as incarnate human beings have to go through the underworld first before we arrive to the realm of the uncreated. Because maybe we pick up another half in there, right? The Two of Wands faces in one direction, is set in one direction, but also we only see one of these birds. We don't see the other. On the other side, starting from the bottom, it's the androgen and the ring, which I love because you can even say you could say the androgen is the union of masculine and feminine within a single entity, and the ring could be the expression of this could be the expression of this union or this unionized whole sort of being. Or at the very least, there's an understanding at the androgen of the interplay between two elements that doesn't allow it to be as easily separate or separated or separable as like separation in the Two of Wands would imply. Also, pictorially, if you look at sulfur in the self, right, it's like sulfur is only this red orange color, but the self is like all of the colors. With all of the colors, it's like that's this void, hollow, whatever would turn into that pearl. Again, what's interesting is the new pearl was at the top of the deck or the bottom with Mercury. It was Mercury in the new pearl right here. I'm turning them up right. And there's something about the pearl that is not gold. Also, this is, you could say, yeah, this is more pearlescent than it is like gold in the self. So again, it kind of sort of lends to, or kind of sort of gives the energy of like transmuting lead into gold is alchemy 101. Right. Like transmuting lead into gold is the expedition of alchemy. But once you are like a full alchemist, whatever, it's like it gets a lot more complicated and like beautiful, right? This is almost like finding the word that rhymes with orange, which like barely scratches the surface of artistic intrigue. But for a vast majority of the world at large, like that's the limit of like their creative interest, right? Because to like really dive into certain things or a lot of things, or you could say anything, there has to be a certain amount of interest or an equally motivating force to like get that deep. Now it's interesting that the Eight of Cups. You could say it's interesting that the Eight of Cups is with glass, but at the same time, it kind of isn't. Because it's almost like, and so I was watching a breakdown of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX that somebody did. I almost sent it to Rob because I feel like Rob's Tarot would love it. Because it was like a Carl Jungian, it was a Jungian approach. And they also use like the major arcana, I guess, in one of the seasons of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. And apparently there's a connection between the major arcana and Carl Jung. I don't know. Like I said, there has to be a certain motivation to dive deep into stuff. And it's not that I'm not interested in Jung. I just feel like that would be a deep dive that, I mean, I don't have to dive that deep because I did see something. Rob shared it with me recently, fairly recently. That was like really interesting. And I was like, if this is the Jung, that like, this is what like I'm interested in. Anyway, it talked about the anima and the animus, right? The anima is a part of the masculine psyche, and the animus is a part of the feminine psyche. And they kind of represent, you could say that, I don't know. I'm not Mr. Carl or anyone who is even remotely fairly educated in his whole Jungian thing. From what I understood from this clip of someone else that was talking about it, specifically as it could apply to this TV show cartoon anime, that he was like not forcing it to fit, but he was like, these are the signs that tend towards an inspiration by Young. It was like they represent like the sort of a shadow aspect. So the anima is like the shadow, like a shadow feminine aspect within the masculine psyche, and then the animus would be like a shadow masculine aspect within a feminine like psyche, right? This would be the marrying of those two. And the thing, depending on if there's like a matriarchal matrilineal or a patriarchal patrilineal situation, it could be like marriage could look different, especially when it's between people of like different standings, I guess, or positions in sort of life where maybe one person has like more bargaining power or more of a choice, or you know what I mean? Like it has to be healed before it's integrated. It doesn't have to be. I feel most would advise that you heal the anima slash animus before you integrate it, or else it will like consume you. And in the show, there was a depiction of like he had to heal the anima before they fused. Girl, I don't know. I kind of want to go. I don't want to watch like necessarily multiple seasons. I don't want to watch the entirety of the story, but like Yu-Gi-Oh is one of those animes that like they go deep, and there are a few animes, quite a few, that have like larger themes or inspiring like sources, and it's like that's also like one of my interests, right? I'm intrigued. Basically, with the Eight of Cups and glass, it's like it's this point where you realize that I'm gonna have to go to the restroom. I'll be back. Basically, you realize you can find the thing, and I guess the Two of Wands looks too, but it's different. All right, I'm back. So basically, but that's the thing too, right? Because I'm reading these from the bottom up. While these two things are separated, it's like only getting half of the picture, or someone's field of vision is like reduced by half. And so there is almost a backtracking energy. I think that may be more so resonant to the image of it rather than the actual energy of it, right? When it's separate, again, it's just, but like earlier when I was saying that, like, effectively, these would both be, I think I said something like, these would both effectively be like aspects of the void, but like different regions of the void. But now with this clarity, and it's funny that glass came out too because I got stuck on clarity earlier. And isn't that how jewelers check the clarity? Like they have the magnifying glass type thing where they could see and detect all those impurities or whatever. Now with this clarity, it's like, again, it has the energy of backtracking because you could like there's this unified field of vision. Both eyes are open. You can see now that these two things have been married together. Again, with the androgen, masculine, feminine, sun and moon, the light and dark of a situation, rather than sort of questing for something under this separation where we think or believe that the self is entirely, or we're like the entirety of the self is within this one expression, when already we see like there are multiple colors here. Scorpio season, new moon Libra, the birth of the Jungian hero. Girl, I don't know. Which is like Rob has a whole spread. I think it's been modified at least once. I know it's been modified at least once. The hero's journey. Against nature, contra naturam. 56 was the card that flipped out face down like immediately. This card is interesting where it shows up. I think too, just like it's almost like our nature as humans or as physically incarnate, whatever. Again, it's because of our nature. Like there's a separation that already took place. So we're already going into life or a lot of situations blind. And we sometimes intentionally or unintentionally blind ourselves for a myriad of reasons, and not all of them negative, but any of them just as potentially disadvantageous to seeing the truth of something, right? People can be blinded by fear, they can be blinded by anger, they can be blinded by hatred, they can be blinded by love, they can be blinded by admiration and appreciation. Rose tinted glasses are a thing as well, right? And it's almost like because, again, the Page of Swords is looking for a new word. And especially because the uncreated stands for the things that have not yet been. There's something about the word that is said to the Page of Swords that it's almost like it lets the Page of Swords know that you've been to the realm of the uncreated. Because again, it's this like void, dark, whatever. Maybe it's the word that's found. And imagine like a world that is just like full of anger and whatever. Or imagine a world where like the score is always kept, right? And then in that world, someone approaches the Page of Swords and the word they give is forgiveness. And right, you build the scene so that that's a world where the concept of forgiveness doesn't exist because the score is kept and it's an eye for an eye and stuff like that, right? And so to be able to just like let it go. And there is an image that comes to mind of almost like the Page of Swords is an aspect of the creator. And so it's like someone went from the, because again, it's the realm of the uncreated. They found forgiveness in a world where there wasn't even there wasn't even art to give someone the inkling of a notion of a concept like forgiveness. But it's almost like, or it almost in my mind, there's like this thing that plays out that's like now the world is recreated and forgiveness is like a concept that the world now has. And you could say it's like a lot of stuff, right? You could say over the course of however many iterations, there's been like more and more new words that have built out the world to what it is that we know today. And along that thought and theory, of course, not every word is like positive, right? Or because there's also those movies, I haven't ever seen any of them, where like lying doesn't exist and somebody lies for the first time. But because there's only truth, like they believe all of the lies, right? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it don't go that far, right? Maybe it's not that deep, little Pisces. But in that, it pulls more and more of what remains uncreated into reality. That is so interesting. And against nature would be like something that doesn't exist in the natural world. Again, that's why, or that's the giveaway to the Page of Swords. I don't even know if the Page of Swords necessarily quantifies or checks if it's just like a new word. You know what I mean? That doesn't yet exist. Cool. What's under the underworld? The offering and the fissure. The fault line. Sorry. The underworld, the offering, the fault line, and then the medallion. So, like that. Feels like the medallion is an entry token. Did this not come out recently? Was it like the blade in the underworld? It may have been the blade in the underworld or the sword in the underworld. And when I first saw it, I was like, here, take this as it resonates. Because it was like there's a tear, a rend in the fabric of the underworld. And I'm pretty sure I went live either towards the final cards and maybe in the next video. And I was like, maybe the blade, like the separation created by the blade, is like the portal or the whatever way within the underworld that leads to the abyss or the realm of the uncreated. So you offer the new word in the underworld, and that's what causes this fault line to crack open, and then the medallion is received, which is the entry token to whatever, to the realm of the uncreated. Oh, interesting. So under the medallion is the shadow, Thanatos, and Agape. Thanatos is the ruler of the underworld. Well, Thanatos is associated with death. Thanatos is death. So not necessarily the ruler of the underworld. We're not going to get Pluto out of the archetypes. So I had to think for a second. We won't. And then the mirror is under Agape with the hunter under that. Cool. And again, the Nine of Swords is there. Asked, oh, look what's under the Nine of Swords. The Hermit. We saw the Five of Pentacles already. Under the Hermit is, we've seen this lady already as well, is Justice. Interesting. This may. Well, yeah, because we saw Justice with the Nine of Wands, and that's what made me look at the Nine of Wands differently. It's almost like, to a certain degree and to a certain extent, when our heart is weighed against the feather to see if it's lighter or not, there's like a certain like grace period of like when we didn't know any better, right? But once we develop a sense, even if we don't use it, it's almost like we're still liable, right? So, for example, let's say that you It's not necessarily quite terms and conditions, but it kind of sort of is terms and conditions. It's like you check the box that you read and agreed to these terms and conditions. And so, since you utilize this service or whatever, we can hold you liable to those terms that you agreed to. Terms and conditions of use are like the end user license agreement. And it's like if we were never presented with the terms and conditions, then we couldn't be held liable for anything we're in. But regardless of if we read it or not, once we agree to something, we can be held liable. Obviously, there's room for grace and mercy. We don't always get the full brunt of the consequences or repercussions to our actions, even as much as we may feel sometimes. But it's almost like in this underworld, excuse me, especially making it past the Nine of Swords, it's like there's a lightning, and we saw what the Drum King Summer and Lightning, and I'm pretty sure Summer was one of the cards that came out when it was like that energy of like the harvest is complete by the end of Virgo season. So before the autumn, before fall. But in that, in the underworld, is the opportunity to like unburden ourselves. And it's at that point, or maybe it's another point, maybe there are multiple points where we are evaluated, where we are reevaluated, right? We offer the new word to the Page of Swords that proves that our heart is lighter than the feather, because I'm assuming the weight of the heart anatomically is heavier than a feather. I guess if it weren't, then hearts would just be like floating in the air. I don't know. I mean, when they say love is in the air, is that what they mean? I don't know. Anyway, it's at that point. And then it's like the doorway to the uncreated sort of opens or whatever. Page of Wands, or sorry, Page of Pentacles, and the High Priestess and the Chariot. And the Queen of Pentacles is behind this. So there's a High Priestess and a Chariot in this Page of Pentacles journey to be the Queen. It's this way. And what took two hands as a page, she can lift single handedly with ease as a queen. Which almost speaks to like a certain weight of something that we wouldn't necessarily be able to handle as a child. I almost want to say as a, not a neophyte. It's like a newborn, not developed. Yeah, see, not a neophyte, as a neo something. Means new. I was pretty sure it meant new. As a new, I guess if you say as a new soul, you could say as a new soul. So maybe it's part of the soul's journey as it comes into a concept of self, where it evolves beyond just the fires that animate the body in whatever way that looks like, right? Anyway, cool. So I kind of sort of ended up doing all of them. I did the, well, that's the one thing I didn't do. I mean, if I had to guess, we'll just use this deck. Why not? I'll use the same deck. I'll shuffle it. Oops. I don't think I have to, though. I don't really have to. So I'm interested to see if this will tie. I'll shuffle it. I'll cut. I'll split. And then we'll do 1, 2, 3, and then from the bottom 4. The Four of Pentacles. We saw the Four of Pentacles. I saw the Four of Pentacles. Which was in the space of the present moment when I did this from 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm low key shook. I'm low key shook because this exact combination came out and they're like on the same side. The Four of Pentacles was on the right side of the board. It came out. The Knight of Pentacles was on the left side of the board. It came out. The realm of the uncreated would take this, would win this over the realm of the dead. And maybe it's because, again, with the world and the yin yang that had gotten stuck, but now it's like starting to spin again, and that's what puts that earth mother goddess energy at like peace. That's what makes her happy. Interesting. Wow. Well, sorry, give me a second. Um, yeah. Things are stuck in the realm of the underworld with this Four of Pentacles. Because with the underworld or the realm of the dead, you only get what has ever been. But the divine is so much vaster than especially the entirety of things that have ever existed on earth. But also, it kind of stifles divine inspiration. But because the creator has the potentiality, if nothing else, to continue to create. And it's almost like you could say it's a conversation between, I don't want to say the ramblings of the creator. It's like a conversation between the musings of a creative and the hopes, maybe, of the creator, or the like hints. The hey, try this. I see you've been stuck there for quite a while. Try this of the creator. But again, we saw like Deck Dungeon Challenge probably last year. It had to be last year because it wasn't this year, where it was all about like doing something new. Like they say that there's nothing new under the sun, but that speaks more to, in my mind, I guess at the very least. And I'm the person reading, so implicit bias is always there. Sometimes I'm better at fighting it. Sometimes it's easy to see how different something is and be like, oh, right. Um, but the saying that there is nothing new under the sun, it doesn't speak to what is possible. It more so speaks to our nature as mankind to just do the whole spiral thing, right? How could we have a spark of the creator within us and not have the capability or capacity to create something new, or at the very least different than what has already been? That would make us like what do you call it, not an imposter. Um, we do impressions of the divine, but again, it's like only material that's already been like used or whatever. We would be facsimile. No, I don't think facsimile is the word I want either. We would be that of the divine rather than being given, granted that seed and spark of creative potential. But again, as human born mortals, there's something in the underworld that we have to find and heal and integrate in order to even begin to see the truth of, like, in order to even really begin to glean, I guess, our potential, especially our potential beyond what has already been, no matter how ancient or spiritual or whatever. And that's something after I finished that last reading with the Pokemon cards, right? And because at first I talked about like how if there were green bugs that ended up on the red side, they had to go into hiding. And that kind of sort of followed through at the end. Always use your own intuition and discernment, right? Just as after I finished, my intuition and discernment was like, oh, actually, it can kind of be like this rather than how it came out when I read it. Because, I mean, for me, things continue to unfold and my discernment starts to like unpack a lot of this after. And not all of it is always necessarily meant to be shared because what is for me isn't necessarily for you. And sometimes it's possible that if I just freely and openly communicate like what is for me, someone else may sort of interpret, someone else may mistakenly pick it up as for them, right? Like they could resonate with everything up until the specific whatever, or however it may resonate for me. And in that sort of position, just in general, not necessarily here specifically, so not necessarily a person watching us specifically, but everything is open. The algorithm does all kinds of stuff. Um, but it's almost like because so much of it may resonate on the front end, they also think that the specific, like some of the specifics of it must also resonate for them as communicated because things earlier did. But it's like you don't have to like if that isn't true or resonant for you, you don't have to force it to fit. Right. Your discernment, your intuition unpacks for you how things apply for you. It has the ability to do that for you. So you take from whatever what you need, right? Because especially anything that is open, public, or communicated with several people, it's possible that people need different things or our brains operate in different ways. And so we process things differently. We see things differently. We have different life experiences that inform all kinds of stuff. But anyway, after the video, it was like the Yanma that was at the end. It was like the red bug, the red dragonfly with the green face. And the specific thing was like the Joltik, right? And the time of megafauna and megaflora, the Joltik wasn't able to thrive. And there's something important that Joltik adds to the equation. So now, in present time, where things are relatively calm enough for Joltik to just like not immediately be exterminated because of more competitive whatever or an environment that isn't favorable, those things can thrive. And then with the switch, as we move from like the green part to the red part, we keep the truth of the green part that's resonant or that's important or that's part of our core self. We keep the green color when we go to the red. And that's how we add colors to get this full spectrum. We don't abandon the green and the yellow and the purples and pinks when we to fully become red, because then it's like we lose all of what we gained to get where we are. Some of it we shed in the underworld, yes, but some of it we keep, which is why like that healthy sense of ego is important for us to know, or at least have enough discernment for us to intuit what is for us to keep as we pick up our pieces, right? But essentially, um, the Yanma kept what it needed from the green while it's in the red, and that's what allows it to defy the gravity of that gravity mountain and still fly as freely and fluidly as it did before the gravity increased so much, before things got so heavy or so dense, right? Cool. So what motivates the Four of Wands? We have the Six of Pentacles, the Empress, and the Two of Swords. Because this is the Four of Pentacles here, the phrase that immediately popped into my mind is nothing ventured, nothing gained. But it feels like specifically that's the closest like phrase to the actual phrase that popped into my mind. It's like this Empress is capable of giving. Not only is there someone or something capable of giving with the Six of Pentacles, because that's what the Six of Pentacles is all about, but with the Empress, it's like they're able to do so much more. But for some reason, they don't. Moon in Libra, new moon Libra. It's like a deliberation. And while someone is deliberating, certain things are just like frozen. And that's the thing about the Empress versus especially the Queen of Cups or even the Queen of Pentacles. The Empress can discern a need. The Empress has the resources to see that need fulfilled, but the Empress is enough Queen of Swords and Queen of Wands as well to where it's like the Empress isn't going to pour into a slotted cup, right? If there are holes in the vessel, if there's a cup that or a jug that is incapable of being full because it has holes, it's cracked, it's whatever, she's not going to endlessly pour into it. She's the Empress. A Queen of Cups, maybe. You may be able to tell a Queen of Cups a sob story and have them just pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring until their somehow bottomless cup starts to empty. But an Empress, no. And it feels like that. But at the same time, it's almost like because we may potentially be in this Four of Pentacles situation, we only ask, like, well, why isn't this happening or why isn't that happening? Because we are in so much need. Like, there's this new anime that I'm watching, and there's this kingdom that there are spirits in this anime, and the spirits are like magical, whatever, right? They're like fairies and stuff, right? As magical as you may imagine, and as powerful as like supernatural forces embodied as you may imagine. And there was this kingdom in their history where it was like they grew like greedy and like tried to control the spirits and invoke the spirits' wrath and were cursed by the spirits to never interact with the spirits again. So every year they held a festival to try to appease the spirits, but they were doing it so long that they forgot why they were doing it in the first place. And at some point, they became entitled. So it's like they kept all of the shadow that they had that landed them in that situation in the first place. But now they're trying to like manipulate their way into I don't I don't know because it's one of those things like even with people in some instances and circumstances it's like if something isn't happening how much entitlement do does one think will like get them whatever, right? Especially like depending on who you're dealing with. So anyway, it's kind of like that. But that's the whole thing about like the underworld was is to learn whatever lessons that we have to learn, to integrate and heal, to heal and then integrate whatever it is that we need to heal and integrate. And I think one of the disservices, I guess I would say, about modern, you could say religion and spirituality, modern belief is it's almost like it tries to remedy a situation before we fully diagnose what the problem is or if there is a problem. And so it's like there are these things to do and these things to follow, but it's almost like, again, the real, like a season game is different than an exhibition match. And even if you give your all in an exhibition match, because there are essentially no stakes besides bragging rights, maybe, it's different than like every day. And that's how or why sometimes when things are calm and things are good, or when we are in communion with one another and in the presence of others, it's easy to be like motivated and to know like whatever, because it's almost like that's the exhibition arena. But when it comes to real life and we have to show up, it's a whole different story. And again, like if an empress has identified a need, especially with this six of pentacles, there's a reason why with this two of swords she is withholding. And an example of that is like sometimes we think money may fix our problems and it won't. And maybe for some of us, we can't afford the luxury of finding out that money won't fix our problems. And so we do a little legwork up front. I don't know. Anyway, behind the Knight of Coins, we have the Star, the Queen of Wands, and the Knight of Cups. It's interesting because the Star and the Queen of Wands look so similar. And why, the reason why I'm not surprised by this is that the Queen of Wands holds solar energy, right? In the sun, the sunflowers face the sun because that's what they do. And the Queen of Wands, the sunflowers face the Queen of Wands because she is the light that nourishes those sunflowers. So she has a solar like quality, but because it's the star, it's emphasized that it's not the sun, right? So you could say that even if one were to breach the realm of the uncreated, and even if someone were to tell the Page of Swords, the acolyte of Swords of Air, a new word, it's like it doesn't make them the creator, right? And so if the Empress were to identify, like, oh, if this person were to whatever, like they would go on a whole ego trip. They would place themselves at the middle of something that is not about them remotely or in the slightest. Just because we have access to something or someone doesn't. Again, it's that whole like association thing. And the ego is one thing that this is pre screened for. But again, in that separation, it's no surprise. And unity consciousness and a unity mindset itself is not enough to bridge the gap that this separation is. Because at that point, and again, that almost plays into the danger of modern theocracy. It's like when we're just told solutions and we haven't worked through the problems, then we don't know how to get from point A to point B. And so, like, we say unity generally, right? Not anyone specifically, especially now. We say unity or we uplift unity as a solution to a lot of the division that we see, but it's like it's just words or it's just a word. What unity is there where separation is the end goal, right? Even between like 3D, 5D, some people are ascending and some people aren't going to make it. It's I was thinking like yesterday, last night about how weird it is maybe that even obviously not every single one or not anyone specifically because again we're all just people, but even in some of the most like inclusive like beliefs or spaces there's still an element of separation, right? In Christianity you have the it starts with an R. People thought it was happening like a month ago. What was it? Why can I not remember the word now? I'm pretty sure it starts with an R. It may not start with an R. Judgment Day. There's a word for it though. Even then, it's Judgment Day, right? And it's like there are some people that are going to be left, and other lines or elements. There's always like something that makes someone better and separates them from everyone else. And it seems like, at least through application by humans, there aren't a lot or any that like truly incorporate everybody. And it's so interesting to me that sometimes you'll get like quote unquote whatever folks that come on and talk about NPCs and whatever. But it's almost like there can also be a level of single minded, almost obsession, which is almost no different than any other NPC behavior, just like an NPC of a different faction, right? You have NPCs in this town and you have NPCs in that town, and all of the NPCs think that they're the playable characters and the other person or other people are NPCs, when in reality we're all playable characters. But I guess in order for some people to feel better about their lot in life, or in order to justify what they don't receive now, there's this thing that's created where I don't know. It's just like as much love and unity as so many things champion, you would almost think you'd see it more rather than it just being another tool or criterion of division. But again, it's like that's why just claiming unity or whatever itself is next to nothing. At that point, it's just a word, right? And so imagine someone of that mindset that is now given a modicum of power or resources or finances. The stalled wheel, it'd just be another cycle of one person or group forcefully or whatever, however, elevating themselves over others. Nothing is different. Nothing has changed besides maybe the face it wears or the clothes and the name it goes by. And again, the thing here with the Page of Swords is against nature. And if there is anything that history and even the modern day has proven, is that that is very much so within human nature. And again, it's like that's why we spiral. That's why there's nothing new under the sun. It's not because it's impossible. It's just that it's highly improbable because of who we are or who we have been. But this new moon Libra, and apparently going forward, is an opportunity to move beyond all that. Like breaking this cycle, breaking the spirals and the loops has been an energy for a hot minute. And again, that's another almost pitfall, especially of some lines of thinking, is that we think it always has to sort of be that way. And in some ways, like it's not entirely incorrect, even with like astrology, right? To look at things and say, this is the way that it's been for as long as I can remember, even outside of that, just life in general. To look at something and go, this is the way that it's always been, or this is the way that it's been as long as I can remember. Again, going back to the expedition match, right? The expedition match, essentially a drill. Someone gets used to the way that someone else plays and they get really, really, really good at responding to that. But then in the actual game, it's like they play different because different things are on the line, or because they're not in training, teaching mode. Maybe they're in like evaluating mode to see if you've learned whatever you've learned and to see how you respond to certain situations. The Empress looks and finds someone lacking. And so this Four of Pentacles situation is not changed. Although she could, she chooses to withhold. Sulfur and separation. And maybe that's the thing with sulfur and separation. It's so easy to condemn and what's that word? Vilify, demonize. It's so easy to demonize other like people and other things and events that happen to us. But it doesn't necessarily always empower us the way that we approach it to like overcome those things. Right? And to see it, to recognize it is one thing, but like it has to be dealt with, or else it's just gonna continue to persist and like be there, which is again what happens, cycles, spirals. Anyway, the androgen in glass on the other side. Cool. These are two components of the star. The Queen of Wands is the light of the star. The Knight of Cups carries the water that the star pours into the earth. Oops. And again, the sun is a star, but that's why it's the star and not the sun with the Queen of Wands, because the Queen of Wands is not the Empress or we, even if we tap into the truth of our creative capability, are not the creator. Right. That's why even within belief systems, you have like Jesus and then like God, right? The Father. Or you'll have like pick like Kali Ma, or you'll have like avatars of the primordial, sort of like Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, but Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva themselves are like expressions of a like more singular, higher conceptual being than even them. And you see it like in the Orishas, even with the multiple Orishas, it's like they're all birthed from somewhere and birthed from something. none of them are necessarily the thing itself, but in our ego, a lot of us will seek to elevate ourselves into whatever positions. Hierophants do it. That's why the energy of the Hierophant can be as wonky as it is. Right. Some people go from like ministers and messengers of whatever and want to be treated as if they are gods themselves. Right. And our typical behavior as humans probably doesn't help when we ourselves elevate people to those positions. Like, look at influencers and celebrity. Celebrity culture wouldn't be what it is if we didn't react and respond to them as we do. Otherwise, they just be people, as they are. And not every celebrity asks or wants or desires what celebrity culture is, right? Like, imagine genuinely being a person who wants to create something and put it out there to help the entire world, and then you get that like platform or that ability, but it's like you don't necessarily ask, or you don't necessarily have to want like fame and the whole life that comes with it. You just want to like put stuff out there for the world to see. So for some, it works to their benefit. They want to be famous and people want to treat them like a celebrity. It's a win-win. Anyway, for a while, look at the world, you'll see. It's not impossible for there to be something new. Far from it. I don't know. It's just like when I brought up astrology earlier, it's almost like ways that we utilize tools, ways that we can utilize certain tools to condemn ourselves to what has already been, because again, like that's our associated meaning based upon our experiences and knowledge up until this time. But it's like, who's to say that the first person even got it right? You know what I mean? Like, maybe at a time where nobody knew math, somebody said 1 + 1 = 2. And they convinced everyone to see it that way because that it can happen more easily if people don't know. Like, oh, yeah, this is how it works. I'm like, oh, okay. Sure. Like, we were all babies, right? And for a long time, we probably only knew what our parents taught us, or people in our environment taught us, or what we saw and witnessed in our environment. If it was something from the others, like what would be our context of developing knowledge outside, of course, of intuition and discernment? More so intuition or whatever, outside of spiritual and or divine intervention, without physical whatever, how would we know? And it's like, now at this point, we just treat it as true. It's so ingrained with everything that we know. And like, historically, there's been so much built upon it that we don't even think to like look or question it. But once that androgen moment happens, once the healing and integration of whatever part happens, that's the clarity that the glass provides. Now we can go back and look upon stuff with like greater clarity. And we may find that we've already been exposed to whatever it is that we're looking for. We just didn't have the mindset or the perspective or the ability to see it then as we will be able to see it whenever, now or in the future. Right. Cool. Anyway, new moon Libra. We are officially done with the first of the social houses, house seasons, I guess. Right. Cool. So yeah, basically we have to go through the underworld first to get to the realm of the uncreated, because we're human. Excuse me. We are physical first. You could say we're physical first because so much of what we see and interact with is physical. I don't like that. I feel like that could be another like pitfall. And again, so I feel like so much of it is intended to help, but I don't know. It's almost like there's so much adherence to a hierophant or hierophantic energy, a scripture, a book, a specific word, that it's like it leaves no room for personal growth, a personal a personal knowing, because you already know the answers. And it's interesting how those of us who claim to be free thinkers will just go from one hierophant to another. I guess the extent of thought is, oh, this person, like what they're saying is true, or what I'm reading here is true. So instead of blindly accepting this one thing as true, I will now blindly accept this other thing as true because it points out a few of the inconsistencies over here, or because I felt, oh, again, it's not necessarily that simple, but it also isn't necessarily that complex. And a lot of it, especially when it comes to people, apparently, a lot of it for us is what happens in our physical lives. What can move whatever the quickest, move the most, the fastest. So, for any roast energies, for any turtle energies, it's almost like they're so slow, or could be so slow, or could take so much time, or so much attention, or so much effort that it's like we would never, it would be hard. We would be hard pressed to see the truth in it because it doesn't validate our physical experience quick enough. So, kind of like a spiritual get rich quick scheme, I guess. Again, we see it in the physical, we see it in the spiritual, we see it in the mental, we see it in the emotional. Things have ripples all over, just like big pharma. You got big pharma like selling pills, and then you have big spirituality selling crystals and concoctions. And again, it's not to say that the crystals and the tinctures don't work, just like it's not to say that the medicine doesn't work. But at some point, there's such an energy of like industry and commerce that a lot of the dangers that you run into with big pharma, you can also run into like anywhere, right? And then emotionally, maybe that's how you get some like brands of emotional manipulation. That's the same. Ten of Swords came out with the Queen of Coins. Bottom of the deck over here is the Nine of Coins. Oof. That's an energy of like, that's when someone's successor is like old enough to assume responsibilities, especially in an environment where like if a Queen of Coins is like nasty and the Nine of Coins is there and ready, it could be like, oh well, the Nine of Coins is like mature enough now and will be a better queen. So that old Queen of Coins, it's an energy of like, and like people do that. And I don't think it's necessarily like fake or whatever. There are some things we tolerate for as long as we can. Maybe because we see better in someone or the best in someone, or because we see the potential of a company, or because we see what something or someone could do. But then at a certain point, it's like when they kind of sort of prove that as long as they're getting paid, or as long as things work in a way that benefits them, then they're not too pressed about actually doing whatever. It only lasts for so long. And this obviously isn't a call for anything. It's just the statement of facts, right? If we advertise something as one thing and it never is that thing, which is so, I guess, ironic, especially talking about like the roast energies and the turtle energies, the energies of things that take time. But even with the things that take time, Queen of Wands, Knight of Coins, we just saw these two cards in combination. The Queen of Wands and the Knight of Coins. Interesting. Um, there is confirmation. Your intuition, discernment, other senses will confirm those like slow moving things. Turtles may be slow. And the Knight of Coin or the Knight of Cups at the bottom, we literally just saw these three. Only thing missing is the star, and we have the Knight of Wands instead of the star, but the Ace of Wands behind that Knight of Wands. Only thing that isn't here is swords. And we saw the Page of Swords. The only element to complete the four to usher in like a empress, emperor, or magician energy. An energy that responds to all four. Wheel of Fortune. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say Wheel of Fortune because that gets a little bit beyond the people in the major arcana. Right. That's when you get, instead of angels that look humanoid, you get angels that are like eyes on wheels and on fire and spinning. Excuse me. The Unseen is a card that just flipped out. The Underworld at the bottom of the deck, sort of in reverse. Unseen upright, Underworld in reverse. Again, it's the uncreated, not the Underworld. But Eros and the Offering are under the Underworld with the shadow right there, you know. But we have to make it through the Underworld before we get there. Right. And again, that can manifest in several ways. Let's say that like one of your best qualities or the quality that is going to get you where you're going is, for example, one that you've learned to like separate yourself from, or one that you view in a negative way because people always teased you or whatever. And so you seek to make an impact, but because of the teasing, you will never, it makes it difficult to access the aspect of you that enables you or that is your part of your path to make that impact. So the underworld would consist of any of the healing that you have to do, maybe inner child healing, low hanging fruit, in order to like heal that, to get over the trauma of the teasing, but then to integrate it and to stand in that what is made for you, what is authentically you, and your pathway to whatever is for you, your purpose, and then to shine in that. Right. And sometimes it's like we as humans, we try to like shine in other ways or get around having to do the thing, right? We seek other paths. Maybe path of least resistance is also us, right? We take the path of least resistance just as things take the path of least resistance to get to us. Sometimes they don't align. Sometimes our path of least resistance is different to the path of the abundance that you're manifesting. And it's least resistance to find you, right? Maybe abundance's least resistance to find you is that unique gift, skill, and ability that you were created with. But for whatever reason, that path for you has significant resistance. Again, potential teasing, low hanging fruit. Ether and Autumn. Oh, I love Ether and Autumn because originally Ether was the void that spoke to the realm of the uncreated before, just to kind of help separate it a little bit. But again, glass, eye of the eagle, when we learn to differentiate the two. And then Mortafactio, which we read as the underworld and the void. Interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, all right. Not necessary. I don't know. I feel like the tone, especially towards the end, is kind of whatever. But again, I don't know. I feel like there are plenty of people on the platform that will make things like easier to digest. And I have so little interest in it because I myself, number one, I don't personally believe that spirals are all there is to life. And if, like, for certainly, I don't aspire to put enough fuel, to add enough fuel to that fire to make it the guiding light of my life. You know what I mean? And so sometimes we just got to be straightforward, or sometimes we have to face the harsh things, learn to avenge. And it's like healing something could be like a slow digestion or a slow breakdown, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be like all at once, instantaneous. I think, again, that plays into the potential pitfalls of a lot of modern belief is that we try to take it all at once. And because we try to take it all at once, it's like there's so much that we kind of miss, or it doesn't really, like, the impact of it doesn't really sit or shift things as strong as it could, because now it becomes so easy to just like perform in a way. We perform really, really well in the exhibition matches, but when the season comes, we crumble. Separation in the sun. Cool. All right. Final card. Please. I see Autumn at the bottom again. Oh. Oh, there we go. 10. 10 was behind one of the cards that it had to be under this card. What was here? It had to be under sulfur, because a new pearl and Mercury were under this card, which was the androgen, or vice versa. But I'm pretty sure that was the last one. 10. It's piezoelectric. Under pressure, 10 emits sound, emits light, emits some kind of frequency. It doesn't crumble under pressure, it shines. Again, which is like the two outcomes of that Nine of Wands. Will someone shine under pressure and be like this breakout star in their first season? Or will they crumble and curse the coaches and the training camps because the exhibition matches weren't like the real thing? And it's, again, it's like, because the stakes are different, no matter how true to form an exhibition, it will never match the energy of a season game. Because in the season, there are stakes. In an exhibition, it's all like training. Again, I'm not a sports person at all, from my extremely limited understanding of like the preseason and the actual season. The count in the preseason doesn't matter. It doesn't carry over into the season. You don't get to the end of the season, lose 90% of your games, go, oh well, like, in the preseason we won 90%, so that balances out, so we should make it to the finals. It's like, no. Preseason is preseason. The season is the season. These are two completely different things. The points do not carry over. This is not vacation time that you can roll over from one year into the next. If you don't use it, you lose it. And it's like that's life. Highs and lows are a part of life. Challenges, storms, sunshine, and rainbows are a part of life. We have the ability to withstand and to thrive and to blossom. There is nothing, as far as I know, and I don't know everything or much or anything relative to the entirety of all that there is to know. There is nothing on earth that thrives that doesn't go through multiple seasons. The oldest trees shed their leaves every year. Every year they grow back. Bears hibernate in the winter. Every spring they wake up, right? And two, along that like line, if we have a season with no leaves, or if we have a season where we have to rest, it doesn't have to mean anything except what it is. We need it to rest. You know, what doesn't rest? Even the sun gets some rest, right? It only has to see you for sorry. That was unnecessary. I'm sorry. It only has to see me for not even that many hours these days because it's wintertime, the sun sets earlier, and my schedule has been all kinds of whatever lately. So we see each other when we see each other. The sun gets a break from me too. But it is my goal in life to learn how to be luminous enough that in the dark, my own light can comfort me when I have to hermit my way through whatever cavern to get to whatever next destination, to unveil whatever further mystery of, oh my gosh, I can't believe, you know. Anyway, bottom of the deck is sugar, where life can be sweet, even under pressure. It's a point when life can be sweet, even under pressure. It's a point where we don't have to ask for life to be anything other than what it is. And again, there are times where our faith may be tested, and in those times and in those moments where our faith is tested, you could say that those are some of those times and moments where the training kicks in, right? Because again, like that's the point of the exhibition. So that when you're on the field for the first time, at least your body will have gone through the drills enough that it can like respond, even if the mind is kind of like frantic. Two of Wands in the moon. Three of Wands, sorry. Three of Wands in the moon. That's all you need sometimes. Sometimes all you need is an inkling. All you need is a notion. All you need is your intuition. Your discernment will verify it. But yeah. All right, final card from the Astro Matrix Tarot. Please. Oh, girl. Knight of Pentacles is our final card. Things are moving forward. This is a confirmation. As much as I may have gone off script or read to the Four of Pentacles a little bit more than the Knight of Pentacles, this is your confirmation. If it's your confirmation, this is your confirmation. If it's resonant and true for you, then it's for you. If you're a Four of Pentacles claiming to be the Knight of Pentacles, claiming close the facade, the external appearance only gets us so far and only gets us so much. And even if we're treated better externally for others because of it, in the long run, it doesn't really benefit us. And so, you know, when we can learn to accept where we are and then whatever else is for us to learn, if we can learn that too, eventually the Knight of Pentacles won't be an act. And eventually what's on the outside will match the inside and it won't be a facade. And eventually, even if someone were to like challenge you or whatever, you'd be able to back it up. You know what I mean? If someone's like, oh, you're just wearing that shirt, like name 3 songs from that band because you're a fake fan. And you're like, not only can I name you every single song on every single album that they've released, I can also do you one better and name the stuff that they were still doing when they were in middle school in the garage and in the basement. That could be you. Sorry. Let me stop. Cool. You know what? I'll appreciate the levity that has apparently come in as I'm ending this. Bottom of the deck is the 7 of Pentacles. Under that is the 9 of Pentacles. And then the 2 of Cups is under that 9 of Pentacles. That 2 of Cups could be the differentiating factor in this 9 of Pentacles. Because again, we saw in one half of the Fablemakers Animated Tarot, we saw the 10 of Swords and the Queen of Pentacles with the 9 of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck. Here's the 9 of Pentacles behind the 7 of Pentacles, where the 9 of Pentacles came out. Again, the purpose of the expedition matches are to train you. Again, this was the side, the Knight of Pentacles was the side of the board where the uncreated was there. The new word is spoken. And because a new word is spoken, a whole new world and realm of possibilities have opened up the world over. Like now, grace, mercy, and forgiveness are like we have concepts. Not only do we have concepts for grace, mercy, and forgiveness, but like we know what they are, right? Even if we ourselves may sometimes struggle, at least the divine is there. Jesus came so that we would be seen as redeemable in his eyes. Because maybe he was like, after the flood, I promised Noah that I wouldn't do anything like that ever again. But the way stuff is going down there, it really has me questioning if I should honor that promise or not. And Jesus was like, all right, let me tell you what, I'm gonna go down there, I'm gonna scope it out, we'll see. And then maybe Jesus was like, oh yeah, girl, like it's real rough down here. I think that they deserve a little bit of a break. I think the graces and the mercies are well warranted and frankly needed. Because life on earth ain't no joke. It ain't like you intended when you created it, girl. You gave them free will. And then stuff happens. And even the good ones go through it. I kind of want to pull one of these. I'll end with one of these. The Dynasty. Interesting. What immediately sticks out to me with the Dynasty card is the sun and the moon. We saw the sun and the moon in the exact same configuration, I'm pretty sure. Sun on the left, moon on the right, and the androgen. And now this is like the dichotomy of young and old. Old being the wizened one, young being the fresh-faced, doughy-eyed, explorative. Not that the old can't also be open to new things, right? Shout out to Donna and I think Don, who were like the most technologically savvy septuagenarians that are octogenarians. Septuagenarians aren't even like, I guess I'm old. No shade to anybody, but I guess I'm old enough now where like 70 isn't even that old. Back in the day, like 40 was ancient, let alone like 30. Now that I'm 32 and over a half, it puts things in perspective. But girl, they were up on technology. They were defying all expectations. And I wonder if it's because of them and my just like appreciation for them, like not getting lost in the times. That like when my grandma got a smartphone, I was like, oh, no, you're going to know how to text. You're going to know how to work your apps. At the very least, you're going to know how to ask Siri to do stuff for you. If you don't know the number, ask Siri. Now, the long term repercussions of that have yet to be seen. But I wonder if that was the thing, like sitting in my mind where I was really like, because my grandma was like, oh, I don't know how to like text on the touch screen and I don't know how to like get on Facebook. I don't know how to. She got more friends on Facebook than I do. Well, she uses her Facebook more than I do. She's doing all kind of stuff. I don't know. So I'm like, that's my grandma. Love it. Anyway, the whole point was things don't have to fall neatly into specific paradigms to maintain a dichotomy. Yanma, that navigates Gravity Mountain as if gravity is what's the word? A theory? Maybe not a theory. As gravity is a suggestion. Yanma navigates Gravity Mountain as if gravity is a suggestion. It's out there just doing whatever. And Yanma's like, oh yeah, girl, gravity is only like sometimes you can do gravity. Like I have to rest every now and then. So, gravity helps me stay on the ground or stay on like this leaf or whatever when I have to rest. But besides that, girl, gravity's just a suggestion. You don't the tower at the bottom of the deck with the axe of Shiva that removes corruption. At the cut is the ivory shield. Power and authority of water. Clarity of water. Crystal clear waters was one of the examples that came out. She is a guardian of the innermost sanctum, the things that are sacred and holy within us and outside of us. She stands guard. Here is the card of purging, removing corruption. Again, what happens in the underworld, how we navigate to and through that Nine of Swords to reach the realm of the uncreated, to be in that Knight of Pentacles energy. Yama would suggest that there is a blending, right? You can be wizened and open to new experiences, right? You can both know and not know. That's almost like continued education energy. You know what I mean? Which is a requirement for some roles. So again, you don't kind of sort of get lost in the times or stuck in the past. Or at least I would imagine that's what the intention is. Not only to stay competitive, but to stay current. If there's an easier, better way, genuinely, why continue to struggle when it's not needed or necessary? I guess the Jedis came out. So I say the Jedis because you have the Force and the Kindred. And that is like basically the extent of my Star Wars knowledge. But don't the Sith use the Force too? Is there a word for like Force sensitive person? The Force sensitive people, the Force and the Kindred are here. Tamed Lion and Three of Chalices. This is, for some reason, this lion is giving me Manticore. Because the tail, okay, if I zoom like all the way in, it looks a little less scorpionic. For some reason, that's giving me the tail of a scorpion. And if it has a lion's head and the tail of a scorpion, she's giving Manticore. The Manticore is a card in, it may be the Strength card actually, in the Spencer's Tarot cards. Because I don't know what other card it would be on. And I'm not going to pull the deck to look. Actually, I am going to pull the deck to look. And I'm only going to pull the deck to look because I have to open this drawer to put the Astro Matrix Tarot back anyway. Again, we're entering Scorpio season. But to see the lion as a manticore, what's in Leo? Because it's like you, not only the fangs, but also the tail. Okay. I feel like I've seen a manticore recently. Can't remember what in. The Minotaur is the Ten of Pentacles. The Griffin is the Ten of Swords. Dwarf is the Three of Pentacles. The Hangman is the Imp. Manticore is Strength. And it's between the Hanged Man and the Seven of Wands, which is a mummy. Between the Hanged Man and a mummy. King of Wands, Anubis, is before the Seven of Wands mummy. We saw the Queen of Wands. Ma'at, that we saw in the Astromatrix Tarot, holds the Scales of Anubis. This gives Manticore body of a lion, tail of a scorpion. See how like similar the tails are? I would say I don't know if I've ever seen it like that. This is given an energy of something like instigation. Excuse me. The Seven of Wands, being the mummy, is an energy of complacency. Or it's almost an energy of like someone who thinks that they've like peaked in life. Or someone who thinks they've explored the heights of something. And so they kind of fall into a sort of rest or unrest. And resign themselves. But there is still more to see, still more to do, still more to come. And so the provocation of the imp feels like it provokes the mummy out of its slumber. And then it's like it reawakens whatever energy that caused them to be recognized in the Six of Wands. It's like it brings a spark or brings passion back into their life. Maybe through the venue of challenge. But with the kindred here and its emphasis on like community, or at least a network of people, it's like this manticore energy. The mummy wouldn't be alone. And maybe that's the thing, right? I could almost imagine it as like, let's say that someone is really accomplished in their field and like, or really like prominently known as a whatever, right? And let's say that like a lot of people, for lack of a better phrase, kiss butt. A lot of people like kiss their butt or like worship the ground they walk on, and like they don't have anyone to like challenge them, and so they kind of fall into that unrest. But then there's like some new hotshot upstart or something, someone like comes onto the scene, and at first maybe they like kind of like ruffle the mummy's feathers a little bit or like irritate the mummy, but then it's like the mummy is like there's the reigniting of that passion, and it's like, oh, like, you know, this is someone I can actually work with, where it would be a collaboration, and it's not the Three of Pentacles, so there is like emotion here beyond just like accomplishing something, right? So maybe there's like a bond that forms, or there's some kind of, you know what I mean? And it doesn't even have to be a person. Because let's say that there was someone that had an idea to like shake things up, but it wasn't viable in the world as the world was. Maybe the technology wasn't there, or maybe the technology was, but the like motivation wasn't, the impetus for change wasn't there. But now that something new or different is being called for, they're like, it could be their time to like now do the thing, right? And depending on the person may be sought out, right? Maybe someone's like works at a company and they're like, like people aren't buying whatever like they used to, or they're like, market analysis shows that trends are like switching in this way. So if we could get ahead of the curve and do whatever, then we would like be in a favorable position. And maybe someone goes like, hey, wasn't there a person that like presented something however long ago? Like maybe we should give them a call, right? And it's like it reawakens the mummy. But again, because the imp is there, it implies that there's going to be almost like, it's like for the mummy that's been wrapped up, that hasn't like spoken for however long and hasn't moved for however long. It's like the voice is going to be like dry, and the mummy's going to have to learn to speak again. The mummy may have to learn to walk again because, they've been so still for so long. The imp is, it's nothing like huge. It's just like growing pains or adjustment pains, or like there's a phase of like getting back into the swing of things. And that's it. Bottom of the deck is the Ace of Pentacles, Ace of Coins, Bread of Life. And it's the darkening. I love the darkening because the void, because the dark of the uncreated space. And it's birthed from there. You literally see it like reality cracking as this thing is like revealed. Again, with the energy of like the new word, it could be something that affects the entire world. And even like with how interconnected the world is these days, someone can do something in one place, right? And maybe there's a convention where a lot of people from all over the world have gathered, or there's someone like influential nearby. And it's like something spreads from like one small whatever. And it used to happen back in the day, but maybe not as quickly, or maybe not in a way where it could be credited. Because I'm pretty sure my knowledge of like Michael Jackson is as limited as my knowledge of most things. Thriller, the music video, terrified me as a child. I had nightmares about it. And at a certain point, I couldn't like think or hear Michael Jackson without thinking of Thriller. And as soon as like the music started playing in my head, I would get the shivers. Um, anyway, it's like he didn't invent the moonwalk, he popularized it, right? And I know there's a music video, is it Smooth Criminal? Where there's like a kid and he's like, I taught that to Michael or whatever. I feel like there is some truth in it. Um, but like maybe that's how stuff happened back in the day. People all over the world, I'm not saying everybody, every single place, but people all over the world know what the moonwalk is because of Michael Jackson. All that to say that the scope and scale and impact can happen quicker, faster, further than we may think. It's not for us to know, it's not for us to put pressure on it, obviously. Also, there are stars in the sky in this force card, and there are 3 stars encapsulated here. Strength is Leo. Leo rules the sun, and we see these stars. There was a star on the other side of the Queen of Wands. And right, it's like the Queen of Wands is a star, luminous enough to blossom, to bloom the sunflowers that she does, but she's not the sun. But just because she isn't the sun doesn't make her light any less impactful. And the interconnectedness of everything, and in the it's almost like there are some arenas where you can't as easily assign a value to different things because the things themselves are like kind of priceless, right? So if someone changes one life or 10 lives or 1,000 lives, the value of a life is so priceless that you could say it's very human to say that the person that changes 1,000 lives is more impactful than the person that changes one life. But what if the one life that was changed goes on to change billions of lives? And the thousands of lives that were changed collectively go on to change a million. Is the billion changed by one not worth more than the million changed by 1,000? It's almost like why even sort of like play those, like they all hold the same value, right? A life changed is a treasured and invaluable thing. It doesn't matter how many, and it doesn't matter like how big or how small, right? So just because I keep emphasizing that the Queen of Wands is a star and not the sun, it doesn't make her light any less luminous or needed or anything. I guess this would be a collection of queens, much like, oh yeah, it was the same energy, but there are like more constantly, there are more stars in the sky. Not all of them necessarily gathered here, which is a good thing because there is like an entire Earth, right? The horizons are different, the times of year are different, like not everywhere on Earth in the same year or in the same sort of 24-hour day sees the same sky, especially the more you go from like North Pole to South Pole, or the further from the equator you go, right? Something about this, if this is a manticore, stands out to me. Maybe because there are snakes here. I did see a chimera in this deck that had snakes for on its tail. It's fine. I'm not going to go looking for it again. So it's almost like with the tamed lion, it's like the lion needs to learn to use its stinger. The lion relies so heavily on its fangs that its stinger is undeveloped. I guess the manticore relies so heavily on the Leo. Again, Leo is the sun, and the Queen of Wands is not, the star is not the sun. We saw the sun with separation and solace in at the cut, I'm pretty sure, and the, well, I don't know, in alchemy. So there is also a degree of appropriateness. I mean, at the same time as being a fully like developed individual, right? Even if something is like our bread and butter, or even if we could do something in one way, sometimes it ultimately benefits us to at least be proficient in multiple approaches, or to be proficient in more of the tools in our toolkit, right? And there is a certain element of force here. So let's say that for some reason, for example, your intuition gets quieter, but it's so you can learn to hone your discernment. And the difference being, let's say your intuition like warns you about things in advance, right? Your intuition is just like, I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't go there, or whatever. Your discernment would be the thing that, like, once you get there, it's like something doesn't feel right, something is off, and then maybe you start to like notice stuff. And so, like, if your intuition takes a back seat so that you can hone your discernment, maybe your intuition doesn't tell you, hey, don't do this, don't do that, don't go there. Once you show up, your discernment will tell you, or maybe you will see, in addition to your discernment, like something you need to see, or again, it just hones that sense. And then you make the call, like, okay, like I'm going to get out of here. Or maybe it's a question, right? My intuition didn't tell me not to do this, but my discernment is telling me to GTFO. Do I stay or do I go? Now, again, this Three of Cups is the strengthening and creation of you as a unified soul, as a unified individual, just like the self was more than just the soul. The soul covers the reds to the oranges, but there was also like greens, pinks, purples, voids of night, and the light of shimmering blue of the celestial bodies, the star, or whatever. Right? It could be the fangs of the lion, the tail of the scorpion, and then like the claws and the rest of the body, right? The fangs and the head, the tail at the end, and then the body in the middle. And all these three, it's like a tri-star system. All those three stars make up this singular light. If you don't have shades on, or if you don't have void sense, this would look like a sun, or it would look like one luminous body. But if you had the glass, you would be able to tell, like, oh, there are actually three different origins of light, where I perceive this singular sun. There's actually three stars that all together create this. Cool. All right, that's what I got. Hope you all have an amazing whenever you see this. Hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path journey, what you find. I almost said intuition. Hope you're acting in intuition. What does that mean? Acting intuition? Well, there's an active intuition and a passive intuition. And one of the low hanging fruits differences would be an active intuition is an intuition that you follow. And because you follow your intuition, it's almost like your intuition updates real time. A passive intuition is an intuition that you don't follow, or an intuition that you have to wait for confirmation to follow. So if your intuition is like turn left and then turn right, active intuition, turn left, you turn left, turn right, you turn right. Passive intuition, turn left. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Assume you don't. Passive intuition, you turn left, right? Or there's a delay and then you turn left. And then it says turn right. And you go like, oh, well, my intuition just told me to turn left. Why is it now telling me to turn right? I need confirmation that I'm supposed to turn right when it just told me to turn left. And meanwhile, you're still like moving. And so passive intuition. If I had to, and I don't have to, but since I said it, I feel I could potentially offer a potential clarification. Ultimately, the divine knows where we are. and can do its best to like set the stage accordingly, adjust the pace and the timing accordingly. It can't always happen, especially depending on other factors and influences involved. Sometimes we get the time to fully confirm and do all of whatever with our intuition. Sometimes things are pressing enough or time sensitive enough that just like real time, we follow it. And what we may lack in intuition in a moment, we could make up for in discernment, right? So maybe we're arguing, like my intuition is telling me to turn right, but I just turned left. So was I supposed to turn right back there? Should I turn left again? Because that's what it told me to do the first time. But the whole time, if your discernment is also an active part, you'll start to see things that validate the right turn. It's like, oh, okay, like, oh, yeah, yeah, okay, so I'm supposed to turn right here. Or I was supposed to turn right back there. So, like, let me backtrack a little bit and then go back there, right? All things work together for the greater good. But just as things work together for the greater good, there are also confluences of things that work together to try to crush spirits and do all kinds of stuff, girl. Anyway, cool. That's what I got. You'll see me when you see me, I guess. As always, you know.